guys, it's Juan back at the New York Comic Con, walking around, and I was just talking to Micah Gunnell. He's over here at Aspen Comics. He does a book called EA Orchid, and I was really impressed with his artwork, so I just started bugging him about how he does things, where he learned how to draw, stuff like that. So Micah, what's your background in drawing?
Should I hold it? Okay. Well, like most artists, I've been drawing my whole life, since I could pretty much hold a pencil. But I guess in terms of my training or things like that, I got into comics when I was around 14, and at that point I looked at comics to sort of copy what they were doing and learn, the techniques that they used. And then as I got older, I started, doing my own stuff. And when I think I was 20 or 21, I went to the Kubert School for a year. Prior to that, I did some figure drawing classes at a local community college, and that's pretty much all my training. Not much to speak of, but learning from books and things like that too. So.
All right, so 1 year at Kubert School, 1 year, and you could do this too. No, well, actually, like he said, he's been drawing most of his life. That's not well. We'll do the inside. I'll show you that later. All right, so. All right, so you have photo reference, or do you kind of work out a thumbnail like you were showing me, and then you blow that up and work off of light boxing? All right, that's
okay. Yeah, like I didn't used to use too much photo reference, but as I've sort of made my style more realistic, it's really necessary to have at least something to look at. Like, okay, well, if you're drawing something that is not something you draw every day, like say you want to draw like New York City or whatever, like a backdrop of New York City, you have to have reference of that in order to make a realistic looking city, because you're not going to remember all the little details that make up a whole cityscape. So like usually, I mean, there are artists that use reference in the wrong way, in my opinion, which they'll have a photo and either they'll trace the photo, which I don't
right away.
Sometimes you can. Sometimes I can tell usually, but I would say like probably the average fan might not be able to tell. But I don't do that at all. So but even beyond that, like reference, I think you don't want to be constrained by the reference. You don't want to like get a photo of something and be like, okay, I have to draw it exactly the way it looks. Like what I usually do is I try to get multiple pieces of reference for something. Like, let's say, like sticking to the city background. If I'm drawing a city street, there might be some element about it that I don't like. Like, okay, well, this particular building looks weird, or I don't like it. I don't want it to be in the picture. So I'll get multiple references and maybe take a building from another photograph and be like, okay, I'll put that type of building here, or whatever. So, but yeah. You're just not going to be able to produce realistic art without some kind of reference. But the good thing about it is you might use reference for, a while. Like, let's say I don't know how to draw dogs, so I need to have reference to draw this one panel that I have to draw a dog. You might not draw dogs very often, but if you continue to have to draw dogs and you continue have to use reference, eventually that reference is going to be in your head. You're going to be able to draw upon all those images that you drew. And when you draw something from a photograph, it's almost like, I don't know why, but you remember it better than if you just look at a photograph. Like, you could look at thousands of photographs of dogs and be like, oh yeah, I pretty much know what a dog looks like. But when you draw it, it's almost like you're like storing it in your memory even more so than when you're just looking at it. Even if you're studying it really closely, when you draw it, it's like you're taking that memory to the next level. So, like, I've used a lot of reference for drawing people, but I don't really use that much now because I've drawn so many people and I've used reference so many times that I know exactly where things go, and I can just draw it from out of my head. but you're never going to learn without studying reality. I guess that's the point.
Right. So, going to drawing for life classes, using a live model, that's how you learn how to draw the human body appropriately, properly. What's your, how fast are you? How fast can you do a page?
It really just depends. It really just depends on the page. Like, I mean, I think the fastest page that I've ever done, I think I finished it in like an hour, like literally in an hour. But that page, it was like, it was a dude that was like floating in like a void, basically. Like there was no background, and he was like this big on the page. So it's like I was just drawing a little dude. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but like it was a small figure, like fairly small, maybe like 6 inches high or something like that. So, but then like, it really just depends on the page. Like, you could have a 6-panel page, you could have a 3-panel page, or you could, the panel numbers vary and like the subject matter varies. So if you're drawing just some people having a conversation, I could draw that, maybe 5 hours or so, if I really want to go fast. But, if you're drawing something, a big action sequence, with 7 different characters fighting each other, you might take 2-3 days on a page. It just depends what's going on. But, for me, honestly, like, I'm kind of a perfectionist, so however much time you give me, I'm going to take that much time. So if I have 3 days, I might just take that 3 days because I want to put that much time into it. I want to like really make it look good. But at the same time, if I need to get something done, then that's the time I have to do it. So just do the best job you can in that amount of time. So it just really depends.
All right, great. So where can people find your artwork? You have a website, DeviantArt?
Yeah, I've got a DeviantArt. It's sonofdavinci.deviantart.com, and I'm on Facebook if you want to add me there. And yeah, as far as like my published work, I've done a lot of work for Aspen mainly. I did Soulfire Dying of the Light was my first book that I did, and I did Shrugged, and I did Delic. And the last book that I did was Executive Assistant Orchid, which is a spin-off of Executive Assistant Iris. That book just came out as a 3-issue miniseries. I think it came out, the last issue came out last month, I believe. And I'm currently working on a new project for Aspen called Idolized, which should be out sometime next year. And I also just finished working on storyboards for the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon. So that'll be out, I guess, sometime early next year as well. So check that out too.
All right, man. Great stuff. Thanks so much for explaining how it's done. You could be just like Micah too. Just practice, practice, practice. All right. Thank you.